Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you're coming from, it is turtle time. Thank you all for joining this Turtle Survival Alliance webinar experience. My name is Jordan Gray, and I will be the host of this wonderful discussion about Latin America and the Caribbean. And I want to give just a minute to let everyone who is registered come in, join the space, and get ready to hear from some amazing conservationists who are looking forward to telling you all about their work and having some group discussion that hopefully will inspire more thoughts, questions, and uh, inspire others that are watching to work with turtles across Latin America and the Caribbean. So we'll give it just 1 minute. Now, while I am giving everybody time to come in, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items. And that is that this is a webinar format. Everyone will be seen in a gallery view, so you'll get to see all the panelists, because again, we want to try to have group discussion. Now, as a webinar format, we have a chat and we have a Q&A feature. So the chat is for everyone watching just to be able to chat amongst yourselves, to be able to make comments. You'll also have a wonderful Turtle Survival Alliance staff member, our Director of Development, Ratri Lakshamipan, putting different prompts and links into the chat for you to be able to learn more. On the back end, I do want to give props to Vanessa Ambas, our communications and design specialist with Turtle Survival Alliance. She will be putting up different photos for you today as we go along through this discussion, because maybe there's a species that you are not familiar with, and Vanessa is going to help you become familiar with that. So, that being said, again, welcome. So let's get started out here as everyone joins. Again, thank you all so much for joining this webinar today. We're really excited for all of these panelists to be here. So this is called From Data to Action, Advancing Turtle Conservation Across Latin America and the Caribbean. Um, so this region is one of the world's great centers of turtle diversity. It's been shaped by millions of years of evolution, and it's home to extraordinary species found nowhere else on Earth. Mexico and Central America, in particular, have been described as a living bridge between North and South America, a unique biogeographic crossroads that has profoundly shaped the region's remarkable species diversity. Yet many turtle species now face escalating threats from habitat destruction, overharvest, illegal trade, hydrologic alteration, and our ever-changing climate. So today, we're joined by five remarkable conservationists from Mexico, Belize, and Colombia, whose work spans genetics, field biology, community, community engagement, habitat protection, education, and species recovery. The data they collect through field and laboratory research is fundamental to developing targeted conservation actions and informing strategies that can effectively safeguard turtle populations across the region. Through this conversation, we hope to explore not only the challenges facing turtles across Latin America and the Caribbean, but also the innovative collaboration, shared lessons, and collective vision emerging from those working to ensure these species survive for generations to come. I want to say this. We are especially excited for this year as this marks a historic milestone for our turtle conservation community. It is the first time that our annual symposium on the conservation and biology of tortoises and freshwater turtles is being held outside of the United States. And we are honored to gather in Guadalajara, Mexico, And we're really deeply grateful for this opportunity to strengthen international collaboration in the setting, particularly by fostering greater collaboration and cooperation across Latin America and the Caribbean. All five of today's panelists are going to be in attendance at this year's annual symposium. So if you want to learn more from them, if you're interested in what they're talking about today, please join us at the symposium. Register today so that you can come meet them and hopefully be inspired by their work and maybe some private conversations that you all have with each other. So the questions posed in today's webinar are intended as opportunities to inspire dialogue and shared reflection among our panelists. By encouraging conversation across countries, disciplines, and conservation experiences, we hope to highlight the interconnected nature of turtle conservation in the region and foster the meaningful exchange of ideas, perspectives, and solutions. So, with that being said, I would like to introduce all of our panelists and allow them to then introduce themselves. First off, I think we'll introduce Alejandra Monsiváis. Alejandra?
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Alejandra Monsiváis. I'm the General Director of Estudiantes Conservando la Naturaleza, or Students Conserving Nature, which is a nonprofit dedicated to the conservation of terrestrial and freshwater turtles in Mexico. And well, we work at 3 different regions in Mexico, very separate regions. The northern Mexico, the Pacific West, and the Yucatan Peninsula. We work there long term, and we work with 12 different species. And based on our data, we selected or identify species that need a special conservation needs. They have conservation needs. So in these areas, we're focusing on 4 species: the Yucatan box turtle, the Jackie slider, Vallarta mud turtle, and Alamos mud turtle. That's it.
All right, thank you very much, Alejandra, and welcome. Next, we'll move on to a gentleman from southern Mexico. His name is Eduardo Reyes Grajales. Eduardo, please tell everyone about yourself.
Good morning, Jordan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Eduardo Reyes Grajales, and I'm from Chiapas. It's very close to Guatemala. And right now, I'm a PhD student in the Colegio de la Frontera Sur in this same state. And also, I'm a regional collaborator with TSA Mexico. So I work in the southern Mexico, including some states like Tabasco, Chiapas, and some part of Veracruz. But and one of the main species that we are focused is for the Central American river turtle, Dermatemis maui, that it's a critical endangered species. Also for the Rhinoclemis rubida, the Oaxaca wood turtle, and for the Pacific Coast musk turtle, the Staurotypus salvinia. Thank you, Jordan.
All right, thank you, Eduardo. Next, we'll move to Colombia, and I'd like to introduce to you Marjorie Pinzon.
Hi, everyone. It's a great opportunity to be here. My name is Marjorie, and I'm the leader of turtle conservation for WCS Colombia, and I'm also working with CSA. We work mainly in 3 different regions in the Caribbean, in the Pacific, and in the Western Plains. And we work mainly with endangered and endemic species. We work with the Magdalena River turtle, the red-throated tortoise, Dall's toad-headed turtle in the Caribbean. In the Pacific, we are beginning to work with dance mud turtle. And in the Western Plains, we work also with the giant South American river turtle.
Great. Thank you, Marjorie. Next, we'll go to Belize with Jaren Serrano.
Hi, good day, everyone. I just want to say first off, thank y'all for joining today. And also, I just want to shout out TSA real quick for honestly being a hub for my professional development as a budding conservationist in the turtle world. So I'm currently the dermatome social scientist at the Belize Foundation for Research and Environmental Education. This is a biological field station in southern Belize where my work alongside local and external partners has supported dermatome conservation through community engagement, education, and social science research. I'm also currently a PhD student at the University of Florida with a concentration in the human dimensions of wildlife conservation. And more specifically, my current research focuses on freshwater governance in Belize, especially how riparian communities, these are like riverside communities, experience, understand, and respond to pressures affecting their freshwater systems and species like the hicatee. And my region of focus is Central America, specifically the lower Belize River Valley. This is a network of river communities where that has like a deep cultural and historical connection to the Hicatee and the Belize River. And in this area, when looking at turtle conservation, I personally see governance as critical because protecting endangered species like the hicatee depends not only on biological data, but also on how communities, institutions, and decision makers work together to manage the freshwater systems that these species occupy. So I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation and look forward to sharing my perspectives while also learning from important turtle conservation work happening across the region through my friends and collaborators here today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jaren. And yeah, we're absolutely happy to have you. Last but absolutely not least, one of my colleagues here at Turtle Survival Alliance, Natalia Gallego-García.
Thank you, Jordan. It's a pleasure to be back here in one of TSA's webinars, especially with this nice crew of Latinos. I am the Director of Conservation Genetics in the TSA. I am also the co-chair of the Turtles and Freshwater Turtles Specialist Group. I work globally, but I have a special focus on in the Americas. I work with a huge network of partners from the USA down to Argentina. With these partners, we are focusing in different research topics related with genetics, especially solving taxonomic issues in the species that are present in the region. We also do population genetics to assess the health of the populations. And we are also starting a lot of projects that are related with repatriation of turtles or tortoises that have been confiscated and what's the best way to find out where they were taken from.
All right. Thank you very much, Natalia. So, welcome all of the panelists. We're really excited to hear from you. If you just joined us in the last few minutes and didn't hear some of the opening remarks and housekeeping, I just want to reiterate that we do have a chat and a Q&A feature. So the chat is going to be used to learn through links put in by Ratri Lurtlaksamipan, as well as different prompts that she may have. If you have any questions, please don't put them in the chat feature. That is what the Q&A feature is used for. So if while our panelists are speaking, while they're answering questions, or if you have any other general questions about turtle conservation across Latin America and the Caribbean, please put those in the Q&A feature, and we'll try to get to all of those questions at the end of this webinar. So let's get this started with the first question. And because this is a panel discussion, I want this going out to all of the panelists. So many turtle species in Latin America and the Caribbean suffer from the same pressures, as I noted in the introduction: habitat destruction and conversion, hydroelectric dams, overharvest, and illegal trade. All of these threats can result in population fragmentation. For all of the panelists, how does your work combat this? And whoever wants to go first, please feel free.
I can go first if you want.
Sure. Thanks, Marjorie.
So from the work that we have been doing in WCS and from my previous experience working with freshwater turtles, tortoises, and even marine turtles, I believe that there is no other way to address conservation challenges and threats faced by turtle species, in this case, continental species, in Colombia than by working with stakeholders and especially with local communities. I think it's really important involving them in monitoring, education, and management process because long-term conservation truly depends on people being part of solutions. So our work with the Magdalena River turtle, for example, has required implementing different strategies because the species faces particular threats across specific parts of its distribution range. However, although conservation actions change between territories, all of them are shaped by community participation. So, while in the lower Sinu River, for example, the population has been primarily affected by dam construction, which has altered natural dynamics of the river and the nesting dynamics of the species. In the Middle Magdalena River basin, the predominant threats are incidental capture or bycatch and consumption. So in the Sinu River, I think the leadership of Ecoviva, which is a community-based association, has made it possible to sustain management actions for more than 10 years, focus on different activities: nest rescue, egg incubation, hatchling release. While in the Magdalena region, the implementation of agreements for the voluntary release of these incidentally captured turtles through a process that has involved artisanal fishing associations, more than 60 local experts, has allowed to return more than 200 turtles to the river, while also promoting sustainable fishing practices and reduce the impacts on the species. And we also try to incorporate new monitoring technologies into our projects and to implement conservation solutions at larger scales, such restoration, degraded habitats, or even restoring the population of other key species that help to maintain the integrity of important habitats for turtle species through the ecological roles that they fulfill. So I think these actions, like all this integrate like view of the conservation challenges, allow us to address underlying threats that affect the long-term viability of these populations.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marjorie.
I could go next.
Sure. Go ahead, Jerry.
So, yeah, in the system where I work at, the Lower Belize River Valley, threats such as overharvest, like you said, Jordan, riverbank erosion, riparian clearing, pollution, habitat disturbances, all these anthropogenic influences are affecting not only Hickory population, but also the quality and connectivity of the freshwater habitats that they depend on. So one way my work responds to this is by helping communities document what they are already seeing on the river through interviews, community engagement, and participatory mapping. We are identifying where pressures are occurring, how they're changing over time, and which areas may be suitable for adaptive management to promote freshwater integrity and support the protection of endangered turtles like the Hicketeer Dimawai. And for me personally, the goal is to amplify community voices and turn local observations into more actionable conservation information that can support a more community-centered approach to freshwater governance in Belize. So for a river turtle like the Hickory, local stewardship is critical because um, communities are often the first to notice changes in the river. So, with continued engagement and capacity building, they can develop that collective efficacy to play an active role in protecting the shared space they have with the Hecate. So, yeah, in short, that's kind of what the work that I'm doing to try and alleviate some of these pressures.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Sharon. It looks like Ale is ready to answer next. So go ahead, Ale.
Well, to me, sometimes when I think about these challenges, I always think that they're big, big challenges because the driven forces that end up with habitat destruction and conversion are caused by multiple things, and they're at a big scale. There are a lot of economic pressures behind that. So I think that our work is more like Marjorie said, at a local scale. So we of course will want to do a lot of things and change a lot of what is happening in our surroundings, but it's so challenging. But at a local scale, I want to say two things because we work in, as I said, three different regions that are very distinct. Two of them are rural areas, and the other one is at the heart of a city. So, in the rural areas, at some degree, habitat destruction is linked to poverty and lack of education and lack of opportunities for young people to get to know more about their landscape and how they can contribute to take care of them. So in our nonprofit, we have a scholarship program that aims to help these kids, young students, local students, to gain abilities and hands-on experience on the work that we do, monitoring turtles or research. And well, that's on one side that, and we think that these skills will help them in daily lives and at a school. And we're trying to encourage them to continue their education because at rural communities, there is a lot of, they drop school. They don't get to middle school. So if they have more opportunities in the future, if we paved that road, they will not, hopefully, not take these works as cowboys or other works that imply the use of the natural resources here. So that's for one side. And at the local place where we work, the city, sorry, as Marjorie said, working with the stakeholders. At the city, there are a lot of stakeholders, government, environmental authorities, a lot of neighbors, tourists. So yeah, that's what we have to do. They're working with a lot of them, and it is a very slow process because see the results, see the impact that we want to have there, and it is a slow process.
All right, thanks a lot, Ale. Next, we'll go to Eduardo.
Sure. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you all for the response. And I agree with Jaren, with Ale, with Marjorie about the different activities that we can get involved in the communities, that it's so important. And also we have this similarity, but what I want to add is that we have different participation to have a sensibilization to take turtles or to take wild fauna, you know, because turtles are really known for people in general. Say, okay, I know this name. I know that in rainy season can comes to my home, have these colors. I know where they put the eggs, and they take it like automatically. It nothing happens, you know. People from the community, people from the cities can think in this way. So we start to share this information about, yeah, okay, this activity can means for you maybe not too much, but it's becoming more and more because there is the roadkill, there is the annual fires that we have in the field, and then we are taking more and more turtles. And also in the city, what is happening is that, oh, I didn't know that turtles are protected. Yes, national, international turtles are protected because even if people don't want to do something bad, they do because they don't know. So we are creating this system through talks with through different ways to share that there is the current situation with turtles, that we cannot just take individuals, wild individuals just like that, that we cannot just buy individuals by Facebook or by internet just like that. There is a way to do if you want to do, but there is the situation. I think I can add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Eduardo. Yeah, good additional points. Natalia, what are your thoughts on the subject?
Um, from a genetics perspective, things are a little bit different in the sense that I feel that we don't do a lot of hands-on conservation and management, but we do provide a lot of information so that colleagues like the ones in this panel can improve the management actions that they are implementing in all these super endangered species. And I think that Dall's toad-headed turtle is a really good example to illustrate how we can provide information. This species is it's a forest species, it's semi-aquatic, and its habitat has been destroyed almost entirely. The estimation is that about 10–15% of it remains. And because the habitat has been so transformed and fragmented, we thought that the species could potentially be fragmented. That's a point that you brought up, Jordan, population fragmentation. And sometimes that sounds obvious because you feel that if the habitat has been fragmented, then the populations would be fragmented along with the habitat, but that sometimes does not happen. If the species are generalists and they can adapt to other types of transformed habitats, they might keep the connection between populations even though the habitat has been transformed. So with genetics, one way to kind of measure how connected the populations are is to measure how much they breed between the different batches. And if you discover that there's no breeding within the batches, then you can have the proof that populations are fragmented. Sometimes you realize otherwise, right? That even though the habitat is extremely fragmented, the populations maintain some connectivity, and even though the habitat's gone, the populations are still breeding among themselves. This was one of the things that we did in Colombia with these specific species, and we were able to prove that the toad-headed turtle was indeed extremely fragmented to the point where only very small patches of extremely related individuals were left. These really small patches are like tiny families. They are so related that they have been mating among relatives, and that has increased the levels of inbreeding. And that can cause a lot of issues depending on, the mutations that arise due to inbreeding. Some of these individuals might die or might not be able to reproduce, and that over time will cause the populations to become even more, even smaller. If you don't stop that process, the outcome will be extremely bad. The population is at imminent risk of extinction. So with that information in hand, then WCS with Marjorie and their team, they started to implement management actions to reconnect these populations, to break that level of relatedness or fragmentation that we observed. So this is a really good example of how, even though with genetics we don't do much in terms of actions, we do provide a lot of important information so that those actions can be tailored better to the specific needs of the species.
All right, thank you, Natalia. Yeah, all fantastic answers. I love all of the perspectives that we're hearing. Of course, we're hearing common threads, but Latin America and the Caribbean is such a large sub-region, and all of you working across this area, it's so valuable to bring your different perspectives. I mean, I really look forward to, for instance, the upcoming annual symposium where we'll have so many voices and perspectives from across Latin America and the Caribbean, and we'll be able to share these ideas, and hopefully this will lead to collaboration and innovation, and hopefully stewarding this next generation of conservationists across this region to help tackle all of these issues, especially like we just talked about with population fragmentation. All right, so the next question, I'm going to pose this one directly to Alejandra and Jaren. So, across Latin America and the Caribbean, many conservation programs depend on passionate young scientists, students, and local leaders. Ale, from your perspective with Estudiantes Conservando la Naturaleza, and Jaren, from your perspective with the Belize Foundation for Research and Environmental Education Fellowship Program, what responsibility do established conservationists have in stewarding the next generation? And how can we better create pathways for young people from local communities to become future conservation leaders? Ale, do you want to start this out?
Yes, thank you. Well, I would say three things. We'll try to have a medium, long-term presence in the communities where we work. Most of the projects are not long-term, but if it's in the researcher possibility to go back to those places where he or she worked, and don't lose contact with the community in general, because building relationships with people, it is important to advance conservation in those places. People will be more willing to collaborate, to perhaps change some habits they do if they trust you, if they see that you have a long commitment, or if not a long commitment, commitment with the community. So try to be present, not trying to come back. And if it is a short-term project, try to follow up with the results of those projects. And my other point to give hands-on opportunities, especially to the young ones who are the most curious in the community and sometimes less shy. So they approach the researcher and ask questions. So invite them to the outings and teach them what we're doing. Sometimes I've been in situations where we don't want kids or young people to, I don't know, take data. And of course, it is important. Data, we want to be like precise, but sometimes we trying to take care of that, we like sometimes push them, and they make them feel that they cannot touch this or they cannot do that. So I would say that invite those young kids to what we do, and well, at least in our nonprofit, we try to show them that in the scholarship students, that what they are contributing to do, it is bigger than just what they see in the field. For example, we've taken a student 3 years ago, something like that. We took that student to a TSA symposium so that he could witness what is this all about that we are trying to do, and at a bigger scale. And this year we're taking a few students also to this symposium. And well, not only the students, also the field technicians that work with us. So the message is let them participate in a lot of things.
No, that's great. I mean, that's so true. Getting the opportunity to participate in various aspects of conservation, or engaging with community members, or some of the maybe laboratory science. I mean, anything that might inspire them, because there's so many different facets of conservation, and we don't know what each person is going, what's going to really grab each person. For some, field conservation; for others, laboratory science; for others, advocacy; for others, education. So that's great. I'm so glad you made that point. Jaron, what are your thoughts, especially from the Be Freeze Fellowship program?
First off, I just want thank you, Jordan. I want to say, Ali, I share the same sentiments. I do strongly believe that for any conservation action to be effective and long-term, capacity building needs to be a central component of that. So I just wanted to agree with you on that. And to answer the question, Jordan, for those who may not be familiar with the Belize Foundation for Research and Environmental Education Fellowship Program, this is a 2-year immersive experience designed for Belizean undergraduate students. And it gives emerging conservationists the opportunity to build the skills, confidence, and field experience needed to play an influential role in conservation in Belize and across the region. And I was fortunate to be a part of that program. And it has since shaped a lot of how I see my responsibility in conservation today. And one thing I would say to the next generation of conservationists is that meaningful conservation work takes time. So, knowledge, experience, and confidence are all built slowly. So, it is important to be patient with yourself and be comfortable not knowing everything, as long as you remain willing to learn. And I also think established conservationists have a responsibility to open doors, share knowledge, and create opportunities for young people to see themselves in this type of work. And for me, as a young Belizean wildlife conservationist, part of that responsibility is to pay it forward by being a resource to students in Belize and across the region, whether through mentorship, field training, research opportunities, or simply being someone that they can reach out to. And in terms of creating pathways for young people from local communities, I see my current work as one small part of the process, but through activities like participatory mapping of anthropogenic threats being observed on the river system, community members and youths can take an active role in applied conservation research. And these kinds of experiences honestly helps build practical skills, that local confidence, and a sense of ownership that young people can carry with them into future conservation work. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I love it. Thanks so much, Jaron. Next, I want to go on to a question specifically for Marjorie, because working in Colombia, the TSAWCS program works with numerous species that the other panelists in Mexico and Central America do not work with. So I want to focus this one, we've talked about population fragmentation. So as populations become more fragmented and imperiled, repatriation and translocation are becoming increasingly important in turtle conservation strategies. So, Marjorie, how do these tools shape management strategies and conservation decision making in Colombia, especially for species like we've heard about the Dall's toad-headed turtle, Mesoclemis dali, and the red-footed tortoise, Chelonoidus carbonarius?
Um, within reintroduction and translocation, actions have indeed become like fundamental tools for conservation, especially in countries such as Colombia. I think La Carranchina Reserve, which is a private civil society reserve that is located in the northern Colombia, is a really good example of how these um, tools have become key mechanisms for biodiversity conservation in the great ecosystems. So, in the case of Dalstoried-headed turtle, which is a critical endangered turtle species endemic to a small region of northern Colombia, as Natalia was explaining before, the loss of tropical dry forest across its range has resulted in small, fragmented, and isolated populations. So, to address this and just develop a little bit of the idea that Natalia presented, we developed like an innovative genetic rescue program for the species. So, as the first of its kind in the country, in which the translocation of genetically distinct individuals from other localities into La Carranchina reserves helped increase genetic diversity and reduce the risk of inbreeding and reconnect populations. So, in the long term, this strategy has the potential to improve the viability of remaining populations of the species in key areas of northern Colombia. And on the other hand, in more recently, in collaboration with regional environmental authorities, we also carry out the reintroduction of 20 individuals of red-footed tortoises into La Carranchina Reserve. This was a part of an effort to reinforce local populations and also try to reduce the risk of local extinction in the long term, because these species particularly are used as pets by communities. So this process required careful planning from veterinary health assessment of the individuals to the development of post-release monitoring protocols, which I think are essential for evaluating long-term survival of this and the success of this process. And in addition, because this species plays a key ecological role as an effective seed disperser, reintroduction also becomes a tool for restoring ecosystems functions at a larger scale, no? Given the benefits that extend far beyond from the conservation of a single species. And through this process, we also create the opportunity to work with local stakeholders, environmental authorities, NGOs, and strengthening institutional management actions, enhancing technical capacity building, as the previous uh, mate was saying before, that is really important in the territory. And in this sense, reintroduction can become an important mechanism for mobilizing institutional support, informing decision making, and improving long-term conservation management. So I think that this process involve, of course, significant challenges, but they also demonstrate that when these efforts are carefully planned, grounded in science, and support through collaboration, they can contribute not only to restoring a species population, but also recovering ecological functions as at a bigger scale. So I think that like reinforce actions that are focused on these strategies can be really important for the conservation in the long term.
All right, no, that was great, Marjorie. Thank you so much. And some of what you touched on goes into the next question I have, and I want to bring Jaren in on that question because we just talked about repatriation and translocation, but there's a couple other tools that are being used in Colombia and Belize, and that's incorporating hatchling release or Head Start programs. And these come with their own suite of methodologies and challenges. So, for you, Marjorie and Jaren, what lessons have you found for yourself, and what would you tell rising conservationists as they face these challenges? Jaren, do you want to go ahead with this one?
Sure, I can. Uh, while I cannot speak with strong confidence on the current Head Start or release program because my responsibilities at Be Free has shifted and my PhD research is kind of taking a life of its own, I can speak from my earlier experience working with the Hickory captive breeding program at Be Free. So during my first 2 years there, I worked closely with the captive breeding facility where I gained important skills in wildlife husbandry, hatchling care, and educational outreach. And during that time, the program successfully hatched hundreds of baby hikitis. To this day, still hatching healthy hikitis. But that success also came with setbacks because we were still learning more about the species biology at that time, the behavior, the dietary needs, and what it really means to actually raise a healthy, happy turtle that may one day be fit for release into the wild. So, for a species like the hikiti, those challenges are especially important because um, they are a highly aquatic species that rarely come to the surface and depend on slow moving, deep freshwater habitats. So, even basic questions around diet, habitat suitability, growth, and release readiness required a lot of patience, careful observation, and long term learning. So, one of the lessons I took from that experience is that conservation is not always straightforward. Even when the goal is clear, the pathways is often shaped by trial and error and adaptation. And my advice to rising conservationists is to honestly expect setbacks and learn from them because mistakes and challenges are part of the process, but they should not be the reason you step away from the work. And in many cases, honestly, they're what teaches you how to become a better conservationist. So that would be my advice to them.
No, that's beautifully said. Thank you, Jaren. Marjorie, from your experience, what would you say that lessons you found for yourself, and what would you tell rising conservationists about these challenges? Very much as a result relates, excuse me, to hatchling release or Head Start programs.
Yeah, I share some of the views of Jaren. I think that uh, hatchling release can be a very valuable conservation tool, especially for critical endangered species. But this strategy also quickly teaches that there are not simple solutions in conservation. So one of the greatest lessons, I think, for me has been understanding that raising individuals and release them is only a small part of the process. So the real challenge begins afterward. Um, so I share all of the visions previously that Jared previously shared, but I think that it's also necessary ensuring that those animals can survive, adapt, and eventually contribute to populations, to functional populations. So with head starting, one of the principles is that, for example, larger individuals survive better, and that overcoming the highly vulnerable early stages increase the recruitment. And several studies show that, yeah, that higher survival rates in captivity rate individuals, it's possible, but there are still enormous, like, several knowledge gaps. So we don't know fully understand how captivity may affect the behavior, the reproductive physiology, the long-term reproductive success. So I also think that we need to understand as much as we can about the species. So in Colombia, for example, our work with the Magdalena River turtle had led us to adapt those management strategies to release hatchlings. Um, and we release them as quickly as possible, for example, minimizing like the potential effects on their adaptation. But this has been a process through the years. And now, of course, we have been able to release more than 19,000 hatchlings. I think also that another major challenge in the success of this program is that it's difficult to demonstrate the short-term success. So for this reason, I consider that long-term monitoring and rigorous demographic analysis are very, very important. Um, and releasing individuals is not enough. So the process must be followed by years of monitoring in order to evaluate the effectiveness. So we have been able, after 10 years of work, and of course it's not only my work, it's the work of all the people that has been previously working on this project. But we have been doing a monitoring program of the released individuals and the wild adults, so that allow us to develop population models and help identify which demographic process, for example, contribute most for the population growth. So I think that this is also a really important part of the process. And perhaps one of the most important lessons for me is that although head starting may increase, of course, the success of the process in some terms, this strategy does not replace other kind of strategies and has to work together. So does not replace habitat protection or added conservation. So in our case, for example, of course, as the result of this work, we have been able to model the population, and we know that although nest protection and hatchling release has contributed a lot to population increase, maybe larger scale actions such habitat protection, reduced capture, can have a much more significant effect, combined, of course, with taking care of the hatchlings. So this might be more significant effects on the long-term population growth. So for the new conservationists, and of course I include myself among them, is like, I think that the release is not the end of the process; it's only the beginning. And of course, bear in mind that conservation requires critical thinking, constant monitoring, and also the ability to adapt the strategies over time.
Excellent. No, those are all great insights. And you brought up something that's so important is that, things like hatchling release or Head Start or some of these other actions are they're tools, and they have to be tools that are worked in concert with so many other actions to succeed. Just one thing, like you're saying, for instance, head starting is not the end of the game. And I love that you said, it's just the beginning, because these animals have been around for over 200 million years. There's still so much we're learning. There's so much we're learning still about, just the unique individuals themselves, about the unique populations, about the greater populations that they're a part of. So as we continue to learn, and has been expressed, it gives us the ability to continue to refine our processes to conserve these animals that we all love. So thank you very much, Marjorie and Jaron. So this one's going because we're going to talk about a very specific species that has already been brought up, but let's dive in a little bit deeper for Jaron and Eduardo. So community-based conservation. You've heard it all several times now over the last more than 45 minutes. It's so important for conservation success and long-term engagement with the species and protection of the habitats. And it's a major point of overlap between Belize and Mexico, especially for the species that you both work with, the critically endangered Central American river turtle, Dermatemes maui. So, Jaron and Eduardo, what similarities have you observed in how local people relate culturally and economically to this critically endangered species in your respective areas?
You want me to go first, Eduardo, or you want to go first?
You can go, Jared.
Okay. First off, to respond to this question, I think we first have to recognize that the Belize River, where I'm working at, functions as a social ecological system. This river it's the largest river in Belize and could pretty much be considered the main vein of the country's biocultural landscape. And people, wildlife, livelihoods, culture, and governance are all connected through this river. And those relationships are shared by both local practices and broader top down governance structures. And more directly, to respond to this question, from what I understand, through conversations with Eduardo at some symposiums we've attended before and also online. There are similarities between Belize and Mexico in how people relate to Dermatemis maui. In both places, the species has historically been viewed as a source of food tied to subsistence, livelihood, and cultural practices. So, when advocating for the species protection from a community based conservation standpoint, we have to be careful not to separate the turtle from the people and river systems it is connected to. But at the same time, I think one important opportunity here um, is to help transform how communities view Dermatemis maui or Hickory, not only as a source of food or income, but also as a unique flagship species for freshwater and watershed management. This is because the Hickory uses many parts of the river system. It uses the banks for nesting, the river channel for movement and shelter, and the riparian vegetation for food. So because of that, it can be a strong indicator for freshwater integrity. So this framing provides an opportunity to elevate the species status, not only in paper, but also in the eyes of communities as a species that reflects the conditions of the freshwater system that the communities as well depend on too. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking on that, Edward.
Hey, I agree with Jaren. It's because in this kind of ecosystems, all involved with the rivers of the aquatic or continental uh, fresh waters is it's really important, and also for the fauna. But also, I want to share our experience here in the southern Mexico. But I want to add something previously. Most of the information, if you are interested to go deeply on this, I can share the publication that we have already for Dermatemis maui or research, and also for the new publication that we will have for Dermatemis maui, if you're interested to follow this topic. So in many regions, Dermatemis maui comes as an important animal for different reasons. It depends of the place, because for some can be because the taste of the meat is really good, is really important for the properties that communities can allow that the meat or the blood or the different parts of the dermatitis have. But for other regions, the figure, the imagine for Dermatemis maui have something, big cultural significance, like the creation of the rivers, the main rivers in, at least in southern Mexico, and also by the creation for the big lagoons that represents a good sources for the communities. But one important thing is, for example, for communities that have an historical approach of Dermatemis maui, one similarity is that they create complex system to capture the Dermatemis maui. This is something really interesting that I saw with the time, that, for example, for some fish or for some animals, the methodology can be homogeneous, by tools, by time, very, very specific. But for dermatemis, it's very complex. It's not they just want to the river and said this and that's it. No, they need a knowledge for the river, a knowledge for the season, a knowledge for what part of the water body, lagoon or river they want to be, and in what time, you know? And this is something for me that is really interesting, because it's an expression and how people can develop a deeply knowledge for the ecosystem. Imagine if that is at this time just to capture the animal. Imagine what we can do if we can offer to apply this knowledge to capture the individual, but not for just for it, if not for study these individuals. So this is something that I saw through the southern Mexico.
Thanks, Eduardo. Yeah, no, I love this conversation between the two of you about this species. I almost feel like, all right, so I'll plug it again. Hey, August 3rd through the 6th, we're going to have the symposium in Guadalajara, Mexico. I would love to see this conversation continue and have people just listen in, because, just talking about the species and its conservation, but very much uh, as it relates to the culture and economics. I mean, it's a fascinating conversation to just sit in, and we have a short time now, but I have no doubt that you all could go talking about it for hours at a time. So not only to be a fly on the wall, but come and join in on the conversation. All right, so my next question. So this one is going to Alejandra and Eduardo, as it relates specifically to Mexico. So projects in northern and southern Mexico often take place in regions with very different landscapes, cultures, and of course, turtle species. Um, what similarities and differences have you observed in how local communities relate culturally, economically, or historically to freshwater and terrestrial turtles across Mexico? Ale, do you want to start this one out?
Yes, Jordan. Well, yeah. So for us, well, the Pacific coast was, and the city of Puerto Vallarta, adding this field site to our work. It was uh, a challenge, a big challenge for us, because we were used to work in rural communities where, well, it is the landscape is not our natural areas. People are more familiar with turtles because they see turtles pretty much in their daily lives. If they not recognize or identify all the species, they knew a few of them. So they are aware that turtles are there in the landscape. And also working with the stakeholders, it is much easier. There are less stakeholders to work with in rural areas. Taking the scholarship students to the field, it is much easier too, because they are familiar with the places that we visit, and we're fortunate that we live or we work in safe areas where there's no mafia around. But working in in Puerto Vallarta, it's been such a challenge because, for instance, doing field work, putting traps out there in the city, everybody's watching, and there are a lot of robberies. So even doing that, it was hard at the beginning. We got traps stolen. What else? And there are sketchy places to be at certain times in the day. So that's one challenge. As I said, there are a lot of stakeholders to work with: the government, the environmental authorities, locally, and at a more broader scale, like at a state scale and national scale. There are a lot of neighbors that live around the lagoons where the Vallarta mud turtle lives. So yeah, it's and also, even though people live next to a lagoon, many of them they don't know that turtles live there. Not only the Vallarta mud turtle, there are other species: the Mexican mud turtle, and the Pacific. Oh, I don't remember the name in English, but it is Trachemis ornata, ornate slider. So most people they're not aware of that turtles are there or other wildlife, and if they know, they will rather have that place. Well, some neighbors, they want that place to be filled in because they think there are mosquitoes around and they don't want to be bothered by mosquitoes. But so there is a lot of people that we have to work with. So if we want to make an impact in Puerto Vallarta, we have to target a lot of people. So yeah, sorry, I got lost, but yeah, it's there are a lot of differences working in rural communities and in the city, and yeah, there are a lot of people that we have to bring in to the conservation work in the city to try to save the Vallarta mud turtle from extinction, try to combat the illegal poaching, the habitat destruction. Well, it is already there. There are a few hectares left for the Vallarta mud turtle, so we are focusing on trying to conserve public areas because private areas, they are under a lot of economic pressure. They are planned to be developed, and that's not a lot that we can do there. But we're trying to work with the city to conserve these places, but not only with the city, as I said, also at the national and state level. What else? Well, there are a lot of people living in the city. So if we want to build social support for this species, we have to think in strategies that can reach to that people. So, for example, we have developed campaigns to inform, to educate students at schools, but also trying to general public to be aware of this species and to feel proud that this unique species lives in that specific spot in Mexico and in the Americas. So, for example, we are holding a race this weekend for World Turtle Day, but also to highlight these species. So we have to think in different strategies, be creative, and of course be patient and very it is a hard balance here because working with politics, it is a hard balance where you maintain yourself diplomatic or how you push those politics to do their work.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ale. And I love what you brought up about, the races. So in a rural area, that's not something that you might, a technique you might use to get people excited about turtle conservation and spreading awareness. But because you live in a city where a lot of people bike and a lot of people run, setting up things like the group biking events or the 5K races, which, by the way, everyone watching, I mean, these are like real events. I mean, everyone's wearing jerseys that have the Vallarta mud turtle on them, very colorful, everything. Lots of people attending these events, and that's a great way to be able to bring awareness and bring community support in where you might not be able to do that in, say, a very rural area where people are spread few and far between. So thanks, Ale. All right, Eduardo, Chiapas. How do your experiences differ from Ale's?
Well, just to optimize the time, I will puntualize in two particular points. For example, in Tabasco, the people have a phrase like Tabasqueño, that means people from Tabasco. Tabasqueño that doesn't have a pochitoque. Pochitoque, it's a mud turtle. Tabasqueño that doesn't have a pochitoque when he was a child, isn't a tabasqueño. Tabasqueño que no tuvo un pochitoque en su infancia is not a tabasqueño. That bring a window to see how important was the turtles in general for people. And this is a different kind of expression that we can show in Mexico through the direct consumption of the meat, of the blood of the species, or through the tendency as pet, or because people likes or represent by different kind of expressions, culturally, artistic, all of these ways. But what is surprised to me that even if we have these different expressions, currently, at least, we don't have the different efforts that maybe other group of animals have, like, for example, birds, that there is worldwide, or at least in Mexico, there is a lot of activity that allow us to have this kind of appreciation. I really glad that the team of Ale is doing this race because have the importance for a turtle that it's critical in danger and is really needed help. So I saw that in different parts of Mexico, people are interested in turtles in a different ways, but for a reason, there is not a lot of attention to talk about the protection or to talk about the situation that can mean quite the same uh, for the different species in Mexico, from the north, from the central, or for the southern region. And also that this is a point directly for students. When I was an undergraduate student, and I tried to find a project, what can I can do, what I can develop. Also, you, Jordan, was in these conversations. I don't know if you remember. I remember that in the past, people that was into herpetologists told me, yeah, why you want to study that turtle, that mud turtle is the most common, is the most common species, is the most abundant. What is the matter to study that, you know, in comparison with other species? And because I don't have experience, because I don't have the maturity at this time, I say, yeah, why not? And just going like that. But right now, thinking on that, it's like, yeah, could be the most common, but there is not a study for those species, not historically. And yeah, all the people know that there is the species there. There is the big abundance. We don't know certainly if it is abundant or not, but there are. But this not a study. There is not people doing these studies. So I saw this in Chiapas. I saw this through southern Mexico, in central Mexico, in northern. And when I'm speaking with it now with the students, that's try to find the most interesting research, and that is good. That approach is good. But hey, look next to your home. Maybe you can find something that is needed. You know, even if someone do something, maybe this paper is comes from 80s, 90s. We are in 26, so there is a lot of difference to see if the trend is similar, if the population increase or decrease, all of these kind of questions. So I think I can share these 2 points.
Yeah, it's fantastic because one of the major things that people often think, I'm so glad you brought it up, is, oh, this species is common. I see it regularly. Well, a lot of those species then go without baseline data on their populations because they're considered common. But how many times have we seen a common species or something perceived as common have their threat status elevated in a matter of 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, whether it goes from a species that was near threatened to endangered or critically endangered. And so people just finding interest in some of the most quote unquote common species can provide very, very, very valuable data for conservationists and researchers down the road, and especially for targeted conservation actions. So thank you for adding that, Eduardo. All right, last question before we move on to the Q&A is, talking about bringing these topics together and having these conversations and bringing innovation to the table is, as stated, the annual symposium for the first time ever. It's going to be out of the United States. It's going to be in Guadalajara, Mexico. Um, all of you will be attending the symposium, and we very much look forward to that. So, from your perspectives, what does bringing this international gathering to Latin America and the Caribbean represent for the visibility of turtle research, conservation, and collaboration taking place across the subregion? Whoever wants to go first, feel free to chime in.
I'll jump in. So in my opinion, I think just from listening to everything that was mentioned today and from our previous relationships over time, I think the work we're all doing individually and collectively has a lot of synergy and overlap. And I think we can all agree that gatherings like this symposium offer platforms for collaboration and knowledge exchange. And for me, bringing the symposium to Mexico is meaningful because it kind of helps center the turtle conservation work already happening across Latin America and the Caribbean. And it gives researchers, students, and conservation practitioners from the region more space to share their work, build relationships, and be recognized as part of the larger global turtle conservation community. So yeah, I'm excited to meet y'all, and I'm excited to share and learn.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. Ale, I
I
saw
can
you
go.
unmute.
I can go after
Marjorie,
you
unmuted.
want. Uh, I think it's a great opportunity to break even walls. It's going to be my first time in the symposium, and I think it's incredibly important that this symposium takes place, sorry, in Mexico, because it's important for the visibility of turtle research and conservation in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this region, as we have been saying, holds extraordinary turtle diversity, but also I think it's a home of, as I have been like listening to all of you, it's like the home of innovative conservation initiatives and strong local leadership and um, long-term field research. And maybe it's a good opportunity to put a platform to make it all of that visible. And also I think that it's a valuable opportunity to strengthen regional collaboration, helping build like the next generation of leaders that I hope to be a part of that across Latin America. So I'm pretty excited to meet all of you and to share the vision of conservation and to learn from your perspectives and points of view.
Thanks, Marjorie. And we look forward to having you there.
Thank you.
Who would like to? Ale?
Yeah. Well, and I think that also from a practical standpoint, in terms of visa, I've known people, students, and our own people that haven't been able to attend TSA symposiums in the past because not everybody has a visa. Well, at least in Mexico, I don't know how it is for other countries, but so I know that other countries in Latin America, Mexico requires visa for other Latin American countries, but I don't think it is as hard to get as for the US visa. So that's a big, I think that's a big difference. It makes a big difference to that allows the students and researchers for different places to attend the symposium. I don't
That's a
know
great
if
point.
you have more. What are your numbers like? More um, participants from these countries, just because of that, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Ale, you bring up a great point. So this year, for everyone watching, we had a record number of abstracts submitted. And a large majority of those being from across Latin America. So, I think kind of proof in the pudding there is that this opens up a whole new door for people to be able to attend and helps, break down those geopolitical borders and especially with regards to, attendance, things that some people might not even think about, when planning international congresses or conferences or symposiums, whatever you want to think about, is the ability for people to travel and the requirements that it takes. So I appreciate you bringing up that point. Um, Natalia, what do you think?
Well, I think it's an unprecedented opportunity for people to meet their colleagues. As they have already pointed out, it is extremely difficult to get to the USA to present your work, to meet your peers, to build the networks that you need to build. We have a false sense that there are not enough turtle biologists out there doing field work, and that's not true. The problem is that it's very difficult to find them. And this platform, as has already been said, is a really important one to meet other people out there. But unfortunately, the USA is a very difficult place to go because of what Ale already pointed out, and because it's costly. So I think this is a really good opportunity for Latin Americans to meet each other and to tell others what they have been doing.
Thanks, Natalia. Eduardo, you've been to many a symposium now, and you have the gift of gab. What do you think?
I think first words. It's I will recognize for all TSA that that now are in the way to break these borders, because it's not easy just decide, oh, this year we would just go outside. I know that there is a huge work to prepare, to talk, how we would do with this, because it's go outside your zone of comfort. That's big congratulations for TSA team for do that, because that effort will allow to have an enrichment for different participations. And that enrichment for different participation can encourage the different actions. Now, now you know about Jaren, about Ale, Natalia, about Marjorie, that it's in this singular point, but between those countries, between those locations, there is more people that, thank you TSA, thank you all the supporters, can now meet us, make these synergies to work. And this is important because everybody starts like that. I know this guy from internet, from articles, for a talk, whatever, and now we are in this meeting, eating, having this conversation together, and this can, maybe new students, maybe new turtle researchers, turtle conservationists in different part of work. That this is totally great, and I think this enrich the diversity for different places, for different age too, because could be young people that already work in Mexico or in Guatemala or any kind of countries. That it is totally good to have a healthy community connecting and potentially working together.
Thanks a lot. Was there anyone have any? Jaren, you already gave your thoughts on it. Ale did, Natalia did, Marjorie. Yeah, so everyone has given their thoughts. And yeah, thank you all so much for that. That being said, let's move on to the Q&A portion. We have a few questions. If you now have a question that wasn't already answered by the panelists, please put them in the Q&A feature. We have a couple of them, and I want to read this one out loud from an attendee coming from Peru. They're stating that there isn't a special program to conserve tortoises and turtles in Peru. They are in the agenda of a few sanctuaries that exist here, but it isn't enough. The principal problem for them is the animal traffic and commerce for pets or for meat and their eggs. There isn't a program to reinsert tortoises or turtles that was living in captivity or teaching people that to rescue them when they were abandoned and they don't have the accurate habitats. What could be the solution? And who would like to take that one on? And you might, if you open the Q&A, you might be able to see that question there.
I can take it.
Sure. Thanks, Natalia.
Well, true. There's a lot of issues in Peru, and one of those issues, as person pointed out, is that there's no kind of management plans or conservation actions in Peru, other than for a few porocnemis in some areas in the Amazon basin. Other species in Peru are very neglected. And one of the main things about that country is that it is extremely flexible in terms of laws for exportation quotas, and that allows a lot of laundering of species, sometimes from other countries. Some matamatas, for instance, that come from Colombia are laundered through Peru. Same goes for some porocnemis like Uniphilis, because of the flexibility of this specific country to allow legal trade. This is one of TSA's target countries. We've been there a couple of times, and it's or it is in our best interest to start building, well, finding first, like all the locals that are actually interested in doing turtle conservation in the country, and to start to engage with these people, provide training if needed, and also engage with key stakeholders that, especially in the Amazon, that have the capacity to work with the local governments in providing, like better either management advice or change some regulations to avoid what he's pointing out, which is the lack of, enforcement when it comes to trafficking.
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. I knew you'd be able to give a good answer for that one, so thank you. The next question comes from Rosaria Mera. I think that teaching about that not only in the locality of the turtles, but also within cities to reduce the demand of turtles and tortoises as pets. How can we do that? Now, that is a very broad answer with a very complex, excuse me, a broad question with a complex answer. But if anyone would like to talk about that, especially for those of you who've worked in urban areas and where you see trade occurring, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as I said in one of the questions, we're trying to stay local, well, and the communities where we work, because we've seen that the only way that people are willing to, in this case, change some habits or or to realize, for example, on the importance of turtles for the ecosystems, it is building long-term relationships with them, a long-term presence there. They want to be willing to change. If you go to the community and give one talk and then say goodbye, that the change won't happen. So it is a slow process, and it requires us to be there, as I said, long term. So that's our bet, and with the years, we've been working in the communities in Sonora, which is north of Mexico, and in Yucatan for about 5-6 years now, and we are now starting to see some changes in the community, but that's after all these years, and it's a long way ahead. And that's for the rural places. For the city, it is more and more challenging, and I don't have the answer to that, but the constant effort, I think that's the answer.
Okay, thanks, Ale. There's a few questions that we've typed answers to, and I think it's time to wrap it up. I want to say first, thank you all again to the panelists for joining us. You all are very busy with what you do. It takes so much work to do what you do. And, all of our appreciation and support goes out to you. I next want to say, to make all this work possible, it takes a lot of grant writing. It takes donor support. It takes other avenues of funding. So, for all of those who have supported this work, thank you very much. For all of those Turtle Survival Alliance members whose your contributions help go to all of the important work done by these panelists and all those others across Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much. And yes, there's, as you can see on the screen, there's different ways you can join us. Read our newest impact report to see all of the progress that we've been making across 32 countries, including 11 in Latin America and the Caribbean. Check out our Turtle Survival magazine. Those are available on our publications drop-down menu on our Turtle Survival Alliance website. I know Rotary will be putting a link in there where you can go check those out. And lastly, I want to say it is Turtle Month. So I know I started with that, but I want to end with that. It is Turtle Month for the Turtle Survival Alliance and our partners. It's a month-long celebration. Although, yeah, I know for us, every day is Turtle Day, but this is a month where we can really highlight all the incredible work being done for turtles and tortoises, bring awareness, share the passion, share the love. If you love turtles, use Turtle Month and just tell everybody about how much you care about these animals. And just remember, passion is contagious. So if you demonstrate your passion to others for conserving these ancient and endearing animals, hopefully that will inspire others to do so. So, with that being said, again, thank you very much for joining this Turtle Survival Alliance webinar experience. This will be on our Turtle Survival Alliance YouTube channel if you'd like to refer back to any of the incredible insights and answers that were provided by our panelists in the future. So, with that said, turtles forever. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Ciao. See you in Mexico.
See you.